Hello guys and welcome to my new video. So I decided to do a quick overview of what trinkets are really good for majority of the healing classes out there. What new Azerite traits are the ones to look out for in the new raid Battle of Dazar'alor. So this is going to be overview of what is good, what is bad for majority of healing classes out there. Majority of healing classes have certain stat priorities that are good for them, and a lot of the new Azerite traits are actually quite good for all of the healing classes out there. Now, there are certain healing classes that prefer their own traits and stuff like that. So there is some differentiation, but the general rule overall is that the traits are really good in the new raid. So first of all, let's look at some of the new traits that are available in Battle of Dazar'alor. So we can look at the first boss. So this is going to be from a perspective of Mistweaver, but I also cover all the healing specs to some extent. You will notice you have the option of getting Treacherous Covenant. Your primary stat is increased by 384 while you're above 50% HP. You take 15% increased damage while below 20% HP. So this is one of those high risk, high reward kind of deals where if you fall below 20%, there's a high chance of you dying. Now, this is not that big of a deal in my opinion, because if you fall below 20%, you should be using a health bot, or you should be using a health bot straight away. So the bigger issue here is that if you fall below 50%, then you lose those intellect stacks. So overall, this trait is actually one of the best traits for majority of the healers out there. If you're not really scared about that 20%, you know, if you fall below 20%, you take more damage. If you're not really scared about that, this is a very decent trait to get and even stack at some point as well. So if you have a ring with Treacherous Covenant, this is one of your best for nearly every healer out there. Now, if we look at other traits that are possible, so there is a total of 3 traits that you can get, a total of new traits that are available in Battle of Dazar'alor, and another one is Bonded Souls. And Bonded Souls is very difficult to evaluate in many different respects, because your spells and abilities have a chance to trigger Soulbound for 15 seconds. During Soulbound, every 5 seconds, you and your nearest ally, so you could be staying beside someone who might not be needing any healing. Your nearest ally are both healed for a specific amount and you gain haste. Now, haste value is, first of all, this trait is not amazing for the haste proc. The haste proc is okay, especially for classes who can use haste, things like Restoration Druid, Discipline Priest, and things like that. For a lot of other healers, haste is somewhat, it's gonna cause me to lose mana quicker, I'm gonna have issues. So haste has a very weird evaluation in raids and 5-man situations, and a lot of the classes don't really want haste. But this trait, regardless of whether you want haste or not, is really strong if it doesn't overheal too much. Now, the problem here is that it affects you and your nearest ally. So the problem with this straight away is that you might have to move around. There's a chance that maybe your nearest ally doesn't need any healing, that's gonna go into overhealing. And overall, if it doesn't overheal too much, this trait is insane. Now, the fact is that you can have 2 or 3 of these and they're going to stack properly. The problem is, the more of this traits you get, the higher possibility of overhealing. So be very wary of getting 2 or 3 of these, because a lot of the times you might have to move around, and especially classes who can't really move around, like, you know, Holy Paladins and stuff like that, who, you know, Resto Druid can move around and get the most use out of it and things like that. Mobile healers can be really good if they really want to optimize this. But overall, this can be one of the best traits. So overall, Treacherous Covenant, Bonded Souls are looking to be extremely strong in terms of the new Azerite traits that are coming from the new raid. Now, besides that, there is another one. There is another trait called Seductive Power. Now, Seductive Power, for every healer out there, the general consensus is that it's not as good as Bonded Souls, it's not as good as Treacherous Covenant, but it is a very decent alternative. And to some extent, this is going to be, can still be classified as one of your best traits. Can. Now, the problem is that your spells and abilities have a chance to conjure Pasandi's Spectral, beckoning you closer. If you approach him, you gain 66 to all stats for 5 minutes, so that includes intellect and stamina, stacking up to 5 times. If you fail to hit his call, you lose 1 stack. So the problem is that there's going to be, I actually don't have this trait myself, but there's going to be an orb or whatever, or something is going to spawn around you. I think I heard that it's very close to you. It's not going to be that far away, so you kind of need to go and get it. You need to get this and stack this up. Now the problem is that if you're an immobile class, that you can't really run around that much, you're focusing on mechanics, you might not be able to get that. Now I think you have around 15 seconds to get this buff. If you don't get this, you're going to lose a stack. So mobile healers like Resto Druids can actually pick this up with relative ease because they can maintain a lot of their healing while on the move. Other healers might have a difficulty with this, but overall, if you maintain a good amount of stacks of this is a very decent trait. Like I mentioned before, immobile healers can suffer from this, but overall, this is very decent. So all of the 3 new traits that are coming from Battle of Dazar'alor are very, very good. And overall, Treacherous Covenant and Bonded Souls are looking to be like the ones that you really, really want. And this is going to be as a decent alternative. So now let's look at the trinkets that are available in the new raid. And there are quite a few trinkets, and some of them are good, some of them bad. Now, before I'm going to mention the trinkets from the raid, I have to mention the new Alchemy Trinket. It has to be done. The new Alchemy Trinket, which can be crafted to 415 or 400, depending. You're probably able to craft the 400, the item level 400 Alchemy Trinket right now if you did a couple of raids and things like that, and it's really not hard. The way you do it, you have to craft the 385, you have to craft the 400, and then you have to craft the 415. So you can't just craft the 415 straight away. So you will have to spend quite a bit of money on this. But this trinket gives you versatility, and versatility is arguably a very solid stat for every single healer out there. A lot of people will be like, oh, versatility is not. Versatility is a very, very solid stat for every healer out there. And then you get an intellect proc for 15 seconds, which again, proc trinkets, I'm not a huge fan of proc trinkets, but the proc is actually very good here. And on top of that, increases the effect that healing and mana potions have on the wearer by 40%. And this works. This mana increase also works with your potion of replenishment. So it's not a massive amount of mana, but it can add up in those mythic fights, in these mythic progression fights where you're running out of mana, especially for certain healers who suffer from an excessive use of spells, which causes you to run out of mana. So overall, this trinket, this Alchemy Trinket, is totally worth getting. First of all, there is no RNG in terms of getting it. You just need to get the mats. You need to spend a little bit of gold. This is going to increase the amount of mana you get. It's going to give you a nice, decent proc, and is on top of that, it's going to give you versatility, which is a very, very solid stat for every single healer out there. If you have alchemy, even if you don't have alchemy, go get this, because if you're unlucky with trinkets, this can be a very, very solid choice for 5-mans and raids, especially raids. Mythic progression, this is probably going to be very, very, very solid. Besides that, you have the Battle of Dazar'alor trinkets, and the first boss drops Word of Envelopment. Now, it's funny to mention trinkets because I was kind of scared about making this video because trinkets were nerfed right before the release. Some of the trinkets were nerfed, some of the trinkets were buffed. Incandescent Silver from Opulence was an extremely strong trinket. It got nerfed by quite a bit, so now it's still good, but there was a lot of changes made to trinket. So this Word of Envelopment was actually very recently buffed. Envelops with 5 allies in a targeted area. So I actually have this trinket right now. I actually got it. So you get this kind of area effect, which you can affect 5 players. It's going to apply a shield on them. That shield is shared, which is really kind of weird, because if you get 5 people, you should try to get at least 5 people in it, which is the maximum amount it affects. You'll see if I use it, you'll get this little shield around you, which looks pretty nice. So now what that means that if one of those people affected by the shield gets hit by a taunt and the shield weakens, everyone else that are affected by the shield, that shield is also weakened. So it's completely shared. But overall, this trinket is very solid, and for majority of the healers, this is going to be one of your best trinkets. Like, I mean, if you get this trinket, it is one of the best trinkets you can get in the raid right now. It's very solid in 5-man situations. I mean, affecting 5 players in 5-mans. Like you saw, the area of effect is not that big, but overall, you really want to get this. Opulence Trinket, which is what a lot of people are talking about right now, is the Incandescent Silver. So while no allies are within 5 yards of you, so this is the type of trinket that you want to get and stay away from everyone else, because you gain critical strike every 2 seconds. At 10 applications of this effect, you also gain 70 mastery, and this is going to fade away if you stay close to allies that don't have this trinket, So overall, critical strike is biz for majority of the healers out there. Critical is very strong for things like Mistweavers, for Holy Paladins, and a lot of other healers as well. Things like Resto, Shamans. It's just, crit is just a very, very strong stat. And Master, on top of the fact, is also another very strong stat for a lot of healers. So, stat-wise, this is amazing. In terms of effect, trying to stay away from everyone else, or trying to stay away 5 yards away from people, can be challenging for healers like Holy Paladins. Holy Paladins most likely won't even be trying to get this trinket because of the way the mastery works requires to stack among players. So you do more healing the closer you are. So if you have this trinket, you'll be staying to people who don't have this trinket, and your stacks are going to be falling off. So Holy Paladins probably is going to be very hard for them to make use of this. But the stacks themselves start generating out of combat. So you most likely will be starting every fight with 10 stacks. And it's going to check whether you're near allies every 2 seconds. So it's not like every time you're going to move into someone else, you lose a stack. If you do it really quickly, you might not lose a stack. So things like Mistweavers, a lot of other healers, this is going to be a very, very solid trinket overall, but it requires some sort of, like, you know, stay away from people and things like that, which can be doable. Again, certain healers might find it harder than others, but overall, we'll have to see. I have to test it a bit more. It is a very solid trinket, just have to play around it. Now, there's also another trinket that drops from Conclave, which is Resto, which is basically to some extent a stat stick, because it just provides you an haste proc for 15 seconds. Again, haste is a very weird value to a lot of the healers. A lot of the healers don't want haste. I think the healers that really appreciate haste right now are Discipline Priests and Resto Druids. To some extent, there is other healers that can use haste, but it's not very, very desirable. So only very few healers are going to really want this trinket. Like I mentioned, Discipline Priests, maybe Resto Druids, but overall, I think if you're not a Discipline Priest, if you're not a Resto Druid, you probably won't want to pick this up. You don't really want to roll for this. If you get it, fine. I mean, in 5-man scenarios, haste can be quite attractive, but overall, healers like Mistweavers and Holy Paladins, the higher keys that they do in Mythic Plus, the less haste that they want to do because they're scared about the mana consumption. But that's depends on the key level that you're doing. We're talking about really, really high keys. So overall, haste is not very desirable for a lot of healers. Only a few healers will really want this, like I mentioned, Discipline Priests, maybe Resto Druids as well. And the last trinket that you can get is Mirror of Entwined Fate, which places a heal, restores 72,000 heal to the target, which is a very, very big heal, but inflicts a curse on yourself that absorbs the next 16,000 healing that you receive. So basically, this is something similar to the on-use effect trinkets that you used to have with Inoculating Extract from Vectus, which was very weird because you had to proc it, so only very few healing classes actually end up being good at it. And then you had another sort of hot heal that you get from a trinket in Untitled Chapter. So this is like an initial burst heal. This is a very solid healing trinket, especially when your class is lacking that single target healing in like 5-man dungeons where like a Discipline Priest might not have the best single target healing and they might struggle with, you know, keeping someone up. Things like King's Rest, you know, the little globules that you get on the first boss. This trinket is great. And it's also very good in raid situations where someone is about to die and you need that really strong heal. So this is, again, if you get this trinket, don't be sad about it because it's, again, a very good trinket. Overall, the trinkets in the new raid are very, very solid. Like I mentioned before, with the exception of Resto, which is probably going to be dependent on which class you play. Overall, they're very, very solid and they will see use in raids and 5-man situations. I should mention before ending this video that if you do want to get some mana alternatives, and there are healers who definitely want to get mana alternatives, and mana alternative trinkets, things like, I think Restoration Druids, majority of Resto Druids in Uldir were using a mana trinket, and Fangs of Intertwined Essence is your best mana regen trinket. This was buffed massively buffed over like a couple of months ago, and overall this is your best mana regen trinket, and it's worth doing Temple of Satralis and trying to get this, especially for classes that can suffer from excessive mana use through spells. So I do recommend people to get this if they suffer from mana, especially if you're Resto Druid and things like that. But overall, the trinkets for Battle of Dazar'alor are very good. this is a good mana regen trinket. Alchemy Trinket is extremely good as well because it doesn't require you to, you know, rely on RNG. In terms of Azerite traits, like I mentioned, Treacherous Covenant, Bonded Souls are probably the ones that you really want to get, and then Seductive Power is probably something that's okay, I'm gonna get it. Maybe I'm a Resto Druid, I can go from place to place and pick up the buff with no problems. So overall, hopefully this video wasn't too long and gave you a decent overview of what trinkets are good, what Azerite traits are really good. There's a lot of resources out there on things like, you know, Wowhead, on things like Questionably Epic, who covers amazing amount of information to do with Restoration Druids. Have a look at this. Let me know how you feel about this. Let me know if you got any of the trinkets already and you tested them out. Let me know, guys. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next guide.